For today's video, we're going to go over linear inequalities. And so linear inequalities look very similar to equations, except instead of having the equation symbol, they have an inequality such as less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. For example, we have a couple of linear equalities such as 5x plus 3 is less than 7. And then there's also another example where we have 7x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, and so these are two very simple examples of linear inequalities. Now, when dealing with these, when trying to solve a linear equality, we simply perform very much the same steps we would do when we're dealing with a regular linear equation. So if I take my first problem as an example, if I'm looking at 5x plus 3, and I'm saying that this is less than 7, if I want to solve for x, you could, in theory, just replace the inequality with an equal sign and solve it normally, and then put the inequality back. That's one technical way to do it. That's the idea behind it. You should actually keep the inequality sign, especially if you're dealing with a negative, which I'll talk about here momentarily. But for all intents and purposes, we basically just solve it normally. So I see that we're adding 3, so I'm going to subtract 3 to both sides. I'm going to get 5x is less than 4. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And I will get x is less than 4/5. Okay. And so that's how you can solve an inequality. Now, to present a solution to an inequality, we can do this one of 3 ways. And I'll show that to you in another example here. So let's get a new example. Let's think 4x plus 8 is less than 12. I'm going to go ahead and solve this problem. I'm going to subtract 8 to both sides. I'm going to get 4x is less than 4. Divide both sides by 4 now. On the left-hand side, I get x, and on the right-hand side, I get 1. So when having inequalities, there's 3 general ways we can present a solution. One is using the inequality symbol, for example, what we have here, x being less than 1. Another way we can do it is use what's called interval notation, which is this answer here states x can be any number as long as it's less than 1. Which means it could be any number from negative infinity, oh, that was like the worst infinity I've ever written, to 1, not including 1, so we use open brackets. This is another style of solution, negative infinity. And then a final solution we can also use is a number line. So if we keep in mind that we have to be less than 1, I could start off with 0, here's 1, here's negative 1. This number line continues on in both directions. If I'm looking at 1, I can write an open dot, and my solution for x can be anywhere below 1. And so that's a third way to present a solution. Now, when dealing with inequalities, especially with number lines, please note that less than and greater than have an open dot. Okay. And so that means when you have a number line, it'll look something like that, where it's an open dot. If you are dealing with less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, that's a closed dot. Okay. And so it would look something like this. Okay, just a formality. All right. Now, one thing to note, and I mentioned this earlier, whenever you're dividing a linear inequality by a negative number, the sign changes. Now, this occurs not only when you divide also, but also when you multiply. So when you either multiply or divide by a negative number, the sign, the inequality sign, will flip from either less than to greater than, or less than or equal to greater than or equal to. And I'll show you a quick example here. So suppose I have negative 2x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 13. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to subtract 5, do what we normally do. I'm going to get negative 2x is greater than or equal to 8. Now here I'm going to divide by negative 2. And what this does is it actually changes the sign from greater than or equal to less than or equal to. And so that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Anytime you divide by a negative number or multiply by a negative number, the sign will change. So now we'll have x is less than or equal to, in this case it'll be negative 4.